My name is Tim Medin. I work here at the Red Siege. So we go through here, just kind of talk through some kind of the high impact, sort of simple hacks, kind of an add-on if you've seen it before, the hacking dumbly kind of a thing. So many times I get asked, like people are like, hey, what's the next cool big thing? And I'm like, it's still the old thing. It hasn't gone away. Anyway, contact information, whatever. When it comes to hacking, and we'll see this time and time again, and frankly, just security in general, just be lazy, right? It was a great quote. I was just listening to an audiobook yesterday. It was, I forget the name of it, but it was, they were referencing Bill Gates, and Bill Gates says, hey, if you want to figure out how to fix a process, find a lazy person, because they will find the most efficient way to get things done. I also remember I was in 8th grade. Mr. Kaler, speaking of in our pre-show, we were talking about where are they now? I'm so curious where Mr. Kaler is. Anyways, 8th grade, basic programming in TRS 80s. Yeah, things were awesome. And he had this big ribbon printout that went across the top of the room all the way around. Remember the big old track printers that went all over the place? And it said something like, lazy people make the best programmers. I was like, what? We were all kind of confused because all of our teachers say work hard, blah, blah, blah. He's like, no, it's because the computer does things over and over again. Make it work for you, right? Like take the simple path. And so much when it comes to hacking, realistically, it is the simple path. In fact, even the true, quote, APT aren't often very A, right? APT stands for Advanced Persistent Threat, right? But time and time again, we see that, well, they don't really need to be very advanced, or frankly, don't even have to be advanced in any way, shape, or form. We can just go off a lot of the old stuff. Here's a sort of a case. I got a couple of case stories here. Case, what do you call them? Cases. First up, we'll get a good old Equifax. I don't want to beat this horse, this dead horse, but the timeline here was, let's take a look. So in March 10th, 2017, the CVE was announced for Apache Struts. Right, so the vulnerability is released. Everybody knows about it. There is patches and there is exploit code, right? March. May 12th, the breach occurs. Look at the timeline here. 2 months. Vulnerability is disclosed as well as the exploit code. 2 months. 2 months before the breach happens, right? So going back to our APT here, right? I mean, yeah, arguable, not even very persistent, right? Definitely, are they advanced? They took code off of the internet and used it. Not really. Persistent. Yeah, we'll get to that bug when we get to that bug, right? It took them a while to compromise, right? And then we saw once they were in for 78 days before the breach notification, 141 days between when they were detected and when the disclosure happened, right? It's not really advanced, and it's definitely not going to be very persistent either. Let's take a look at a sort of a more recent example. This was published in the end of May 2020. This is an advisory. They're talking about how the Russian cyber actors from the GRU, blah, 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 are exploiting a vulnerability in XM from August 2019. August, right? I mean, we got, September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, right? That's 9 months. You can grow a baby in this time frame, right? A human child can be produced between when this thing was disclosed and when the GRU, right? These are sort of the definition of APT, are using these sort of old school techniques, right? I mean, I say old school because things move so quickly on the internet. Well, sort of, right? Another example, So the NSA published an article. They published a list of the top vulnerabilities targeted by Chinese attackers, right? These are, again, APTs, right? This is published October 20th. October 20th, 2020. Look at the CVEs here, right? So published October 2020. Of these vulnerabilities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 out of the top 22 here, and there's even 11 of the top 22, half of them are from 2019 or earlier. In fact, we even have a 2015, right? 2015 right here. I tried to draw with my pen and I just scribbled it out. 2015, right? There's 2018s in here. So these things are sitting around for a long time. It's sort of mind-boggling that this even happens. So what I'm trying to get to here is we don't have to be that advanced sometimes. Hold on, let me quick edit my slide here. Oops, discard. I have 2 extra slides in here, duplicates. Let me fix them. There we go. So let's go back. Let's think about that. I find so many times when I'm doing my hacking, right, that I end up saying, oh, what if we sort of chase this rabbit into its hole? And so many times I get stuck looking at the trees instead of backing up and be like, oh my gosh, let's take a look at this forest. Right. So what I'm going to go through here is we'll go through some of these other simple but surprisingly effective attacks. So here's an example here of an endpoint bypass. A friend of mine sent this to me, Derek Banks. So Derek Banks was trying to download Ncat to a Windows system, kind of just basically as a test to see, hey, can we get this thing down? Now, every AV, every defensive product on the face of the planet should kill that, right? And in fact, it did. Now, as part of the Nmap project, there's another tool called Ncat. It actually does the same thing. In fact, it does the same thing and more. It gives us cryptography, which Ncat does not. And because it's part of this trusted platform, right, of Nmap, downloaded it, works just fine, right? So these kind of things are dumb. And I know Jeff is here in our the Slack channel. I look over here because that's where, Discord. Discord's to my left. So I feel like if I look over there, I'm talking to Jeff. So Jeff, he keeps posting stuff like this all the time. If you don't follow Jeff McJunkin on the tweeters, you absolutely should, because he drops goodness like this all the time. So this is one of my favorite. I actually had to scroll through a few of the ones that he released or discussed. And so he had, I forget what the exact, okay, so it's Tavis Ormandy's CTF tool. So what happened is he downloaded it and the AV like freaked out, like, nope, sorry, you can't run this thing. What he ended up doing was going into the binary, changing Tavis Ormandy's name in the executable, in the binary, to Tavis Zormandy. And it worked. So they were literally keying off the string Tavis Ormandy inside, and when he changed it, like 25 AV members were flagging on Tavis Ormandy only. 25. And we see this kind of thing over and over where we take the strings. There was another example where I forget the exact payload. I think it was Cobalt Strike, maybe. And what happened is they took strings from a game. It might have been Fortnite. I forget the exact game, but they took good strings, put it in this other one, and Cylance was like, oh yeah, that looks totally legit. Yeah, totally. So, and this is tough, right? Because we see time and time again, even if we get into these next gen detection mechanisms, a lot of times it's the oldest gen we've ever had that kind of fails back to. So we see this time, and how cheesy is this? Literally, Like this is what you do to make fun of somebody on the playground. Like, I'm not going to call you by your real last name. I'm going to call you something else, Jeff McJunkin. And right, and we get mad. Like, he literally did the playground thing where he changed the last name, and things like, yeah, fair enough, carry on. Right. So, and this goes back to the simple crap just works time and time again. Yes, Jeff's got the link here in the Discord, so check that out. By the way, if you're watching and you're not in Discord, redsiege.com/Discord. We've got the live chat going now. We also, if you've got questions afterwards, feel free to throw them in there. We're happy to help. The other one that it's just the gift that keeps on giving. I wanted to pull this out, but no high impact, stupid hack is as continually evergreen and gift giving as bad passwords. It's just there, right? Like we just can't get it to go away. And there's so many different reasons for it, right? We'll see people use the same password all over the place. Not a good idea, right? Convince your friends and family members, use a password manager, right? And we see time and time again that organizations use some sort of rotation policy and complexity requirements. I saw one yesterday, which I felt like trying to come up with an answer with a workable password was a puzzle. The first letter had to be the first character had to be a letter. You had to have numbers, and it had to be the second through the last. And it was a subset of the special characters you could use. It was like, what? People just want to log in, man. Right? And we see time and time again, people, especially when we get into rotation, because rotation means I came up with a great password once. One time I had a good password, and now I have to change it. And they remember the last 784 of those passwords. So eventually, after running out of good ideas, people are like, you know what? I can look out the window and derive my password from the universe by using the season and year. Right? Like right now, fall 2020 or autumn 2020, crazy because there's two options, right? Or if it's super secure, exclamation point, because it's the top left key on the keyboard. And we see this time and time again, and users keep doing this, and we keep telling them not to. And I've sort of gotten to the point here where it's not the user's fault. We are creating this problem with our requirements. I was just talking to we're doing a vendor onboarding with a potential client, and they have this whole series of questions related to our internal security. And one of them was, do you rotate passwords and require special characters and stuff? And I was like, no. And I'm like, let me tell you why. Right? I had like 240 characters to type in this little box, and I'm like, I need more characters. I need to explain to somebody here. This auditor needs to understand, right? So I tweeted this, and I asked people, I'm like, hey, how bad or how good? What are your best stories related to passwords? Right? We see seasons in year. My favorite here is from Black Room Sec is we had a conversation and I used it, and that was the password. Right? Matching 30%. That was the best I've seen by Anders here. The best I've ever had was like 16% or so, where they all were using season and year. And if you think about that, that's literally take a die, roll a die, and 1 in 6. You roll a 6, and you've got that password, right? And we see this time and time again. That's got to go away. And the MFA helps, but this crap's just got to stop, right? Other fun things. I have literally seen where like the help itself gives you the password. So Kevin Johnson here, good friend of mine, by the way. Kevin clicked the login form, and it was like the password was literally right there. And many others here where it was in the page source, it was posted, right? These passwords, literally just look around for it, right? My kid could look through and try to find some of these things. It doesn't even have to be a security professional or whatever. Let's take a look at another sort of simple example here. And this is part of my story. This happened to me. So let me back up. So a friend of mine was this was relatively new in the IoT world. I don't think IoT wasn't even a word yet. So he went to Amazon, bought a camera, and then blogged on what he did to it. So he grabbed the camera, TrendNet camera here, went to Amazon, bought the thing, right, $40, something like that, and then grabbed the firmware. Now he walks through how he hacked this thing. So he used binwalk. Now back in those days, what binwalk does is it analyzes binary files and looks for boundaries, or it looks for chunks that look interesting, like, hey, this might be an image, this could be a compressed or something like that, and it looks for those boundaries. Now, the modern version of binwalk will split up the file after it finds these boundaries. The older one didn't. It just told you where they were. So in his blog post, he talks through using DD to break these up into various pieces. And we can see here, if we look at the top left, there are 3 sections, right? We've got 0 to this number, from that 3 number to the 6 number, and then the 6 number to the end. So 3 of those. So chops those up and then looks at the file, and you can see, looks at the file. I must have skipped that part. Uses the file command on it and then identifies it as a compressed Minix file system. So uses mounts the thing, looks around, finds a server directory. In the server directory is CGI bin Anani. Now, guess what Anani stands for. Just take a shot in the dark. You only need one guess. What is it, Anani? Let me wait for the lag here that is the Discords. Jeff McJunkin is typing. Oh, we have a couple. No, the does not stand for lag, right? Yeah, it stands for anonymous, right? Anonymous, which means anybody can access this particular directory. And in there, MJPEG CGI. So it literally goes to the camera, goes to Anani, MJPEG CGI, and bypasses all of the authentication with the camera. So I'm like, okay, cool. This is somebody else's blog post on how to hack the camera. So I'm like, you know what? If he can do it, maybe I can. So I went to Amazon, I bought a different model of camera, and literally followed by numbers. It was hack by numbers, following through with his instructions on what he did. Now the things were a little bit different. A little bit, right? Binwalk still works like binwalk. DD still works the same, just the locations are going to be different. The file system was a little bit different, but still mounted it the same way. Now, on a Linux system, what's the first file you're probably going to look at on a Linux system, right? You get access to a Linux system. Where is one of the first places that you're going to look? Yeah, Etsy Shadow. Well, there was no Etsy Shadow. There was Etsy Password. Now, Etsy Shadow in a modern Linux system contains password hashes. In old Linux systems, the Etsy Password, as the name describes, contains the password hashes. Now, what we see in really old Linux systems and brand new IoT devices is the password hashes are actually an Etsy Password because everything runs as root, so there's no reason to split them up. With the device that I found, literally following hack by numbers, looking at the very first file, I see usernames and this weird looking hash. And I look at it, and I'm like, huh. And I look at the user admin and I grab this hash here, and it says, and I decode this base 64. It was base 64. It's not, by the way, base 64 encoding is encoding. It is not encryption, right? So you can literally grab a pen and paper and decode base 64. And take admin, decode, it's admin, and of course I can log into my camera with the default credentials of admin. I'm like, huh, neat. So I look at the next in Etsy password, and it's viewer. And I look in the user interface, and there's a viewer, right? And the default viewer. I look at Etsy Shadow one more time, or Etsy Password rather. and there's a factory test account. It wasn't in the web interface. It's not there. So there was a test account, a backdoor account that didn't show up in the user interface that nobody knew existed, that you could access features on the camera, right? And it was literally following along with these hack by numbers, right? Like, hey, I can download Binwalk. Hey, I can cut this thing up. Hey, I can look around the file system, and literally the first file found something quite interesting, right? And I get it, and we've done before at SANS events where we just buy random stuff off the internet, and we're like, let's see what we can find, and we bring stuff in, and it's funny because we'll have people come up afterwards and like, well, what are the answers? I don't know. I went to Amazon last week and just put a bunch of crap in the cart and had it shipped straight to Las Vegas, right? And let's hack this stuff. And we see this kind of thing time and time again, where literally just trying, right? And it's being comfortable with failing, right? We don't know that there's an answer here, right? We've got to try. Another sort of fun story. So I'm a huge football fan. Okay, I love American football. So I had, what did I have? I had, I'm trying to remember what the deal was. I was watching something streaming a game was somehow on Amazon, and I had an Apple TV, and I wanted to watch the game on my TV. And I would push the button to share, to have my iPad cast up to my Apple TV, and it would say AirPlay is disabled. I was like, what? This was quite a while ago now. This was back in the days when Amazon and Apple really hated each other. Now they just don't like each other. And I was like, well, that sucks. So I looked inside the configuration being pulled down from the server, and there was a config item that said AirPlay disabled. So literally the feature was in the app, and Amazon's like, screw you, Apple. Nope. I'm not gonna let you do it. I'm like, well, you bunch of jerks. Why am I in the middle of this, right? Like, I feel like I'm a kid stuck in the middle of a custody battle. Like, I paid for all of this. Just let me use it. So I grabbed Burp. I let the traffic come to my system. I sent it through Burp, and I changed AirPlay disabled, or AirPlay enabled false. I changed that then to true. Now I get a new error. Signature validation failed. Scroll on to the end of the configuration. There's a signature. There's this big, long, hash-looking thing at the end. Signature validation failed. So what next? Right? Well, what's the sort of next step there? Well, some people will also say, like, well, we could reverse engineer the hashing algorithm, maybe modify the app to make it, ignore the signature. I honestly, I didn't think of this at first. It took me a couple of days, and I'm like, oh, what if I just delete the signature? So the app, gets the configuration. It says, let's verify the signature. There is no signature. In that case, the Amazon app was like, fair enough. There's no signature. It's probably okay. And it worked just fine. Another fun one. This was Mike Saunders on my team here. He had a phenomenal one. This wasn't one of my favorite. I remember belly laughing when he told me about this. But logging into a site, he had the username and password. I think it was some kind of breached credential password stuffing style attack, and got hit on the MFA, right? It's like, please enter the PIN. And what he did is he just went to any other page on the server, and the server's like, oh, well, if you got past the password part and you're here, you must have been okay with the MFA. Literally just blew past it, right? That's not high tech, right? Dead freaking simple. Yeah, like that was well done there, Mike. He's hardwater hackers. Similarly, the Mac one was a ton of fun, right? If you just hit enter a bunch of times at the root prompt, it'd be like, yeah, fair enough. My favorite flaw of all time. My favorite one. And how many of you folks have kids? right? We all get this denial of service from our children sometimes. Like, hey, can I have a treat? Dad, can I have some ice cream? Right? This is sort of from the Simpsons. Can we have a pool, Dad? Can we have a pool, Dad? No. Can we have a pool, Dad? No. Can we have a pool, Dad? No. And eventually the thing's like, fair enough. You have a pool. So what this flaw would do is 1 out of 256 times, you'd be like, yeah, credentials look good. And it just worked. Come to find out, if the first byte of the guess was, I think, like a 0 or something like that, it would pass the check and just let you in. And I'm trying to think of the person that first figured this out, because they probably had maybe like a vulnerability scanner or maybe a password guessing tool, something that's guessing over and over again. And it says, hey, this password worked, and then doesn't work. Try to log in, it doesn't work. What the hell? Try it again, like doesn't work. Like script it up, like I'm gonna try it again, and like after 200 tries, it works. Right? Literally just ask, and it works. Dead freaking simple, right? Nothing sort of fancy here. And I don't have time for it, but there's the link is here. But I had a tweet where I asked people, like, hey, what are some of the dead simplest hacks that you've seen? So if you want to read some more there, I didn't have time to put them all into this presentation. So check some of that out. So an important thing to remember here is you never sort of know too much, right? Keep this simple. You can never go too basic. You find this time and time again. Let me tell you sort of another story. So there was a competition, and what you could get with this competition, if you won, you would get a room in Vegas. You would get a ticket to Black Hat, and you could go to a party. And I'm like, well, cool. I've never been to Black Hat. You guys remember Black Hat in the before times, right? Remember that? And I was like, I'd love to go. This sounds awesome. So looking at the rules, how do the rules here work? So got to be a ninja. I redacted it because I don't want. My goal here is not to shame them. The goal here was that they were designing a competition. It was designed for the competition, not for their actual tooling. So, how to be a ninja in 3 steps. So first place gets the card, gets the hotel and everything, and I'm like, score. I want to be that. Let's scroll down here a little bit. How does this work, right? How do I get the points? How do I get this? Well, so what we do is we start scanning, we sniff and we crack, and we get security holes. And every time you find some sort of an issue, and of course let them know through the app, you get points. So if you install the tool on a new device, you get 10 points. That's easy. I can do that. If you map a network, 5, crack a password, 20, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. If you find a vulnerability in the tool itself, 100. Sorry, I find a vulnerability on something else, that's 100. If you find it in the code, you get 500 and the t-shirt. Sweet, right? Let's do this. So let me ask you this. So step 1, right? We're doing the competition. What should we do first? What's the very first thing that we should do when we want to, score some points here, right? Get the most quantity of points. Yeah. The dead simple thing here is, way to go, Jason. Install it, right? Install it. I mean, on 1,000 devices. I mean, Jason's rich. He's 1,000 devices. I had 1, right? Install it. And then right when we install it, it needs to somehow let the other system know what exactly happens, right? So I install it, boom, 10 points, cool. Now what, right? I've installed it, I've got 10 points, now what? Cisc, I love what you're thinking, but you're going a little bit too high level. Pull it back. Wicked smart, Cisc. Right, so I install it, lets the server know, 10 points. Time to stop typing while driving. Yeah, good idea. Although I'm terrible at that. I do that all the time. All right, what else we got here? I know it's a little bit of a lag. Play the game here. So first step, capture the traffic, right? Capture the traffic and replay it, right? Replay. Yeah, there we go. Good couple here. Replay, right? So I capture the traffic, replay it. Cool. Now I got 20 points. Cool. Now I got 30 points, 40, 50, 60, 70, over and over and over, and start replaying the traffic. And we're getting 10 points every single time. Sweet. So we start doing this. All right. And a friend of mine is doing this as well. So we're cranking through, and it's actually Tim Tomes, if you don't know him, Landmaster 53, very, very smart gentleman, good friend of mine. And I tell him about it, and we start spooling back and forth. So my internet isn't as good as his. So he was starting to pass me, and I'm like, oh crap. So then I, have a couple extra systems that I run this on, and it's this war here where we're going faster and faster and faster here. And I remembered it was Mother's Day weekend, and I had just spooled it up. I'd figured out a way to make it go faster. We'll come back to that in a little bit. A way to make it a lot faster. And according to my math, I was going to pass Tomes in about 15 to 20 minutes. Right? And me being the terrible son-in-law that I am, I'm still looking at my phone like, refresh. Is it working? Am I catching him? And about 5 to 10 minutes before I'm going to pass him, the server goes down. Crap. Right? The server goes down, and they ended up posting on Twitter like, hey, we're disabling the replay attacks because no. Tim is still ahead of me. Tomes is still ahead of me. And I'm like, well, dang it. I'm so close. If you could have given me like 5 more minutes, I would have been good. So here is what the data looks like. Right? We've got magic here. We've got data. Right? This is being sent to the server. Now, if you look at this, this is going to be very indicative of what's called base 64, right? Uppercase, lowercase numbers, 26 plus 26 plus 10 is 52. And then we've got the plus and the slash. We also have additional encoding at the end here. We'll have 1, 2, or 0 equal signs for that. So I see the data here, right? So decode the data. Like any rational person would here. Take a look inside, and we can see here, this is what the data look like. So if I tried to replay, we would get this a duplicate device ID or something like that that says, hey, you can't do it. What's the next steps then, right? Well, let's change this C here to a D. Rewrap it, send it to the server. This time we get an error. Invalid magic. Well, what the hell is magic? Really, what the crap is going on? We come back here. Here's a request. This data piece decoded. This was some sort of value that we had no clue, no idea what this thing was. So what the hell is magic? Right? If we didn't have the lag, I would ask you a little bit. So at that point, my next step, and this is where Sisk was going to here, is let's take a look in the app. Literally open up the app here. I was using JetX at the time. Look inside it and literally do the search for magic, right? There's my arrow. It's off by a little bit. It's okay. Look in the code and we find magic. The rest don't matter right here. So now let's jump to the code, right? So we jump into the code here. Here's the line where magic is defined. Magic here is a string. Cool, right? So we've got this str here. So let's trace this str back. Str is up here. So it's doing something here, charat, and a substring of A2. Well, where the heck is A2? A2 is up here, right? And then we've got some additional data here as B, right? Oh, look, there's our B, right? Our B right here is our data. Here is our B, that's being, something is happening in a function here, in our A2 function. And then we're going to chop it up on this next line and then build our magic, right? So it's taking the original data, doing something with it to make magic. The question is, what is this function doing? So let's take a quick look. So here is that A. Now, what if you kind of take a guess here? Like if you're looking at this, don't try to reverse engineer it. Take your first gut feel, because way too often your first gut feel works. Okay. I mean, come back. If it doesn't work, then try something different, but try the simple things first, right? So if we look here, there's kind of a couple clues here on what it might be. So we see first off an error message, bad base 64. Okay. We also see 3/4. So what base 64 does is it takes 3 characters and converts it into 4 characters. And that's how we get that reduced character set that it's actually nice to transmit. It's going to have issues with the weird binary characters. So literally just a base 64 here. And let's take a whack at this. So let's come back to here. If we base 64, let's take our original string, we'll base 64 it once again, and then char at is going to get the 4th character, coming from 0, so the 5th, and then grab the last 9 characters. So we can try this, and I can create my own magic, right? I am a sorcerer, right? I got magic now. I can create my own magic. Now, this is a part where I got needed some extra help because my coding is not the best. Once again, Tim Tomes sort of helped me out. He built this nice payload here, and he had it multi-threaded and all sorts of crazy stuff, where it literally just take a random seed here, create this as our new device ID, a random value, literally convert this thing, chop it up, send it in, and boom. The even cooler thing is, yeah, magic. Right? Even cooler thing, I didn't notice this at first, Tim did, is by default, it was showed like standard. Well, if you look at the point system, if you were a platinum member, you would actually get 2.5 times the points if you were platinum. Guess how you tell if you're platinum? In the XML. So now we're going from 10 to 25 points. Cool. On top of that, what happens now if we just, I don't know, do all of these? Right? Do all of them. So we can submit one payload with all of the things. So I could tell it that, hey, I installed it on a new device. I can tell it I mapped a network. I tell it I can crack the password. The password cracking within the app didn't actually work. So the only people scoring points for password cracking was us. So you could submit this, right? So 10 plus 5 plus 20 plus 1 plus 1 plus 5 plus 100 is 142. Multiply that by 2.5, and you get, unfortunately, I got math on the screen, 355 points every single submission, right? Now we're cooking with gas, right? Now we're off to the races. Now we're back to the point in time where it comes down to who has the faster internet, me or Tim Tomes. Well, Tim has a faster internet than I do. And so we're scoring like crazy. Here's a few people here who were, my guess is these folks were running around person to person, installing it on, moms, dads, cousins, sisters, former roommates, laptops and stuff. And they're scoring some points. And then Christy Priory got some points here. I think Christy was doing some of the replay and maybe this one as well, a little bit for those folks there at the top. Now, another interesting thing is with the code we have, we're using HTTP lib. HTTP lib, what it does is it first does a SYN-ACK, sends the data, tears down. Now, there's a way to make that go a little bit faster. And Tim was beating me, and I couldn't beat him with just straight up internet. Couldn't do it. So I needed a different way to do that. Could I have done a cloud VM? Yeah, but back in those days, it wasn't as cheap as it is right now, and the bandwidth restrictions were a little bit tighter. So I wasn't willing to do that. I like your thinking though, Sisk. It's a great idea, especially these days. I was much cheaper then too. So I'm like, you know what? Let's think through this, right? SYN-ACK, data, teardown. If only we could do this a little bit faster. Then I remembered there's a feature in HTTP. It's called Keep Alive. What it allows us to do is do SYN-ACK, keep the connection open, and just start sending data. Just tons and tons and tons of data. So now I just do this. I got this payload generator, literally jam it into Ncat, and just like machine gun data. Don't care about the responses, and just start blowing past tomes. And I actually got a phone call from the guys. They're like, "Hey, great job on the competition. Can you stop, please? Now." We were going so fast. We were gonna get. I think we were on pace to get like something in the billions. So I called Tim. I was like, "Hey man, they asked if we could stop." He's like, "Oh, that's okay. I'll stop anyway. I'm already going to Black Hat." I'm like, "Dude, what? I've never been to Black Hat, and you're trying to steal my ticket, and you're already going, and your company's paying for it? Are you killing me?" So yeah. Anyway, so between this and all of the other examples, none of these are high tech, right? None of these are fancy. None of these are like brand new cutting edge. Here, I figured out how to write new ROP gadgets. They were all dead simple, right? All simple. And they all worked. Try simple first. In fact, I find some of the people that I find to be most helpful are people who aren't familiar with the problem, right? People who aren't familiar with, hey, this is the issue. This is where I'm stuck. Or they're not sort of encumbered by extra knowledge. I know that sounds silly, but truthfully, like, hey, have you tried this other dumb thing? Oh my gosh. And the irony is, as a sort of senior person that people kind of sometimes, for better or worse, look up to and expect knowledge and experience from, it's hard to take that step back sometime. I mean, I like to think it's sort of the end goal. Once you get comfortable enough with your experience to walk into a room, you're like, I don't no idea. I got nothing. Any of you new people have a solution here? That's empowering, actually, because now you don't have to show off. You're like, I don't know. And people trust you more. So take that input. And also, there was a great book that I was listening to. It was What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And this is IT, security. This is to a T. He talked through this. And I was like, oh, that hurts. I was talking through when someone comes to you with an idea and they're super excited, shut up. Shut up. Even if there's a better way to solve this, sometimes just shut up. Right? Because there's time and time again, like, well, you could solve it this way, you could solve it this way. Give them the moment. Let them enjoy their win. Is it the most efficient? Maybe there's another way where it's 5% more efficient. You might give them that 5% in efficiency, but crush 50% of their spirit. Shut up and be like, you know what? That's awesome. Good for you. Right? And have that ability as the more senior person to just be like, that's fantastic. Good for you. And just leave it. Instead of trying to spin it around and be like, well, let me show you how smart I am. No, people hate people like that, right? How many times have you heard that? Like, wow, they just always tell me what to do and I never get to do anything. And let people have that joy. Just shut up, listen. You learn when you listen. You don't learn when you talk, right? So listen. If you want to talk, which I frankly encourage you to do so, teach others. Super important. And I say this over and over again. I get people, in fact, we were just talking to Jason on my team. And he's like, I don't know what to talk about. Dude, I don't have anything. Sorry, Jason, I'm putting you on the spot here. He's like, I don't know what to talk about. I don't have anything interesting to talk about. Oh, you absolutely do. You've got an experience, all of you. This isn't just Jason. All of you have an experience I don't have. You have experience with tools that I don't have. Put your perspective on it. Put your spin on it. Frankly, if you're going to get out there and give a talk, it doesn't have to be brand new cutting edge research. Show me how you learned how to use a tool. How was it useful to you? How did you find it useful? How did it help you accomplish your task? That's what I want to see. I want to see your spin on it. I want to see you have passion and interest in it, right? We find that the presentations, we've put all sorts of different presentations online, and I've done a bunch at different conferences, and I talked a bunch to John Strand at Black Hills and such, and by far, the best attended, the most viewed are the most introductory. Because think of your target audience. What do most people need? It's a lot more people who need some of the simpler stuff than need the, here's how you can, rewrite the firmware in your Intel chip or whatever the heck it might be. That's not, it's cool. Is it useful to everyone? Absolutely not. So get out there, put your spin on it. Literally, like Peter Van Eckhout, the Corland coder, he does a lot of exploit dev classes, and it started off with him blogging on his learning process on how to write exploits. None of that stuff at the time was new. None of it was necessarily cutting edge. He just like, here is my process. And people kept asking him like, hey, can you tell me more about that? Yeah, love to. And he literally turned that into his career. So I encourage you, get out there, submit. There are a million different of these, on these virtual conferences these days. It's safe. You're in your own home. You can't see people staring at you, right? Get out there, give some of those things. Yes, it is, imposter syndrome is a real thing, but think about it. Everyone else feels the same way, right? Get out there and share. So with that, we are coming to close to the end here. Any questions anywhere? By the way, let me do the obligatory shill thing. If you want to contact us for work, redsiege.com, contact@redsiege.com, the tweeters, whatever. Also, if you are in the if you go to your chat and type ! Red Siege, we will follow up with you there as well. All right, questions.
So yeah, we have a couple of them. First, there was one back during the Jeff McJunkin tweet string that you had. It says, won't that string change have changed the signature of the complete binary? Was a question.
Yes, so the question was related to the Jeff McJunkin thing, where he changed in the binary, here we go. He changed it from Tavis Ormandy to Chavis Zormandy, right? And yes, it's gonna change the hash of the executable, which is fine because this isn't signed. Now, maybe you're intentionally trying to change the signature so it doesn't, the hash is different. Only the worst software looks at the full hash. So yes, it does change the hash, which is probably a good thing, unless it were signed.
So this is a kind of a deep question, but what would you think is a good entry-level position for someone who's studying cybersecurity? Something that would be acceptable to do in college. What do you think is more credible, certificates or a degree in computer science?
I think the degree in computer science, the best security people I know have some sort of background on the other side, if you will, right? Like it's easier for me to learn how to hack an Exchange server if I have experience managing the Exchange server, because now I know, where the mailboxes are, how it's stored, the file structure, misconfigurations, things like that. So if you understand how to configure it, it makes you better at breaking it. So there's probably a lot more internships in sort of regular IT that can help you in the security side then as well.
So that is it for questions over. Someone's asking how they can get a shirt. Come over to the Discord. Sometimes we give them away. You'll get lucky there. Let's see if we have anything else.
Great comment there from Zero Cool. Learning to communicate with people who are not tech savvy, that is extraordinarily an important skill, right? Tremendous. If you can bridge that gap between the tech and not tech, you've got a bright future.
For sure. And with that, unless anybody else has a last question, that is it for the questions. Thank you for coming out. Love seeing everybody, and y'all have a good day.